What was the most bizarre dream you've ever had? I had a dream where I was in prison, and I dropped the soap in the showers. As I bent over to get the soap, a big black hand caresses my shoulder and says, "Need a hand?" I just replied, "Yeah, sure," as if that was normal, and the guy's big black pee-pee flops out of his underwear and reaches the floor to where my soap was and picked it up like how an elephant trunk can pick things up. I grabbed the soap and continued with my day like normal, and that is why I have a fear of going to prison. Basically, my mom overdosed just after I turned 7. The night after she died, I had a dream where I walked into my parents' room to say goodnight. My mom was lying in bed under the covers. All I could see was her arms and shoulders sticking out of the covers. I said, "Mom?" And here back, down here. I looked down and see my mom's severed head, eyes open, perfectly functioning, asking me to put her head back on her body. 18 years later, and I can still recall the exact image I saw when I looked down in the dream. My own funeral with my 2 little girls crying over my casket. I quit my chewing tobacco addiction that morning and haven't had a dip since. I was at school and for some reason my fingers started going numb, and it wouldn't return to its normal state, so I went home and I woke up the next day with it black. Then it continued getting worse until I had a black arm up until my elbow, and for some reason I had to pretend it wasn't rotting, so I just covered it. And just before I woke up I stood up from my cafeteria table and it cracked and made a splat sound onto the table as it fell. This was the day after my twins' first birthday and like 3 days after their mother had agreed to marry me. In my dream we were burying them, my kids. I was crying and I kept thinking that I saw my parents, but it just kept being people who looked vaguely like them. When my fiancée threw the last bit of dirt over them, I became furious with her. Then she got mad at me for getting mad at her, so she started yelling at me. I started hitting her, but I had like 6 fists, and she still just had 2. So I was hitting her and she could not defend herself at all. In my dream I was hitting her for hours and hours, and eventually she just effing slumped over and died, so I decided to bury her next to our children. Just as I was about to throw the last bit of dirt over her, her eyes opened again, and they were my mother's eyes, and I saw the face of my father reflected back in them. So effing glad I woke up at that point. I had a dream where I was laying in bed, and my door flies open, and these giant gray aliens run in and scream into my face the words, "We are human." They ripped open my jaw and shoved their huge alien pee-pees in my mouth and laid their eggs in me, and then I woke up. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I'd leave her if my collectible cards got ruined? Well, a while ago, my daughter said in passing, one time, that she had thought about changing her request from a dog to a cat. The next day, I came home from work, and my wife found a been-neutered cat and brought him home. She didn't check with my daughter to see if she wanted a cat. She didn't let our daughter pick out the cat. Our daughter now hates the cat, leaving me to take care of everything again. Our finances are so tight we haven't been able to get him neutered, and he is spraying everything. I don't know what's wrong with him, but his spray is almost as intense as a skunk. And it doesn't come out. I've had to throw away half of my wardrobe so far because nothing gets the smell and stain out, and believe me, I've tried everything. I even took one exceptionally sentimental shirt from our wedding to the cleaners to see if they could do anything to save it, but I was told it was a lost cause. I only have a few possessions. I got rid of most of my stuff when my wife and I moved in together because she liked her stuff more. If my wife and I separated, all my stuff could fit in 2 duffel bags. I've had to sell everything else to keep us afloat through these years. What I have left is probably worth less than $1,000, but it's stuff that means a lot to me. I've been keeping it in our closet with the understanding that we always keep that door closed to keep the cat out. Recently, however, my wife has been leaving the door open. The last time she did, I had to throw 3 shirts out because the cat sprayed them. I'm at my wit's end. It's been hard to see all my stuff go, but I've done what's necessary to keep our family functioning, but I have almost nothing left. I have 4 shirts, 3 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of underwear, 3 bras, 3 pairs of socks, 1 pair of shoes, my phone, an old laptop, a tent, a box of pictures, and those magic cards. That's it. Everything else in this house is my wife's or our kids'. Everything else I own was either sold or destroyed. Yesterday the door to the closet was open again with the cat sniffing the boxes my cards were kept in, and I broke down, sobbing, thinking it was already too late. Luckily, he hadn't sprayed yet, and I got him out of the closet before anything happened. Maybe it was an overreaction, but I lost my cool and told my wife that if she left the door open again and the cat ruined my cards or the box of pictures, I'd be done. She was selfish in getting the cat against my will and without letting our daughter pick it out if she even wanted a cat. It was selfish to get a cat we could not properly care for. That she doesn't understand how having to get rid of nearly everything I own is like getting rid of pieces of my identity. She thinks I'm overreacting and that it's just a stupid kid's game. Some other relevant pieces of information. My wife is now officially cancer-free but undergoing reconstructive surgeries. We've tried all sorts of sliding scale clinics to get him neutered, but even the low end has been out of our budget. I was on the fence about leaving her before her diagnosis, but once she found out she had cancer, I couldn't leave her. She doesn't have a robust support system, and her mom only contacts her when she needs something. No one should have to go through cancer on their own. I'm still on the fence about leaving. She has one more major, although elective, surgery to go through, so after she recovers from that and can start working again, I plan on getting into therapy for some unbiased help working through whether leaving or not would be the right thing to do. What's the scariest thing that's happened to you on Halloween? My husband Jim and I own a business in a big old barn of a building which has 5 floors. Halloween was a Monday last year. We locked up the business at 5 p.m. and we went to an early dinner across town. Then we got a call from Sonatrol, our security monitoring company, at 6:30. A motion detector on the lower level. Then another. We left in a tearing hurry, but figured it's a bird or something. I went inside the main level upstairs and disarmed the alarm, and started fumbling noisily with the keys and the big iron gate, one of many that separate the floors at night. Jim checked the perimeter outside for signs of a break-in. Nothing, doors and windows intact. Dusk was long gone. The shadows had settled in and taken over. Just wardrobes loomed in the dark. Wardrobes and nothing more. Right? I headed down below to the location of the alarm, trusting Jim would follow. After all, it was a rat. Or a cat. Or a bird. I am accustomed to the building after dark, so I just turned on my phone light, not the overheads, and walked around boldly like I own the place. I looked in the corner with the motion detector. Nothing, just its red eye blinking mindlessly at me. No rats, no cats, no birds. I turned and went the other way while Jim poked around a few aisles over. And there it was. A burglary kit sitting in the middle of the floor. Bolt cutters, a fire extinguisher, just sitting there, waiting. I have never gotten a bigger case of sheer terror so fast. After all, there was no broken window or door. So he was still there. In the dark. With me. I hissed Jim, please, 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 and he didn't hear me. I literally couldn't scream, just like in those stupid goddamn dreams, my voice stuck. Just me, the spotlit burglary tools, and a hostile presence lurking in the dusty shadows watching while I whispered for someone to save me. Finally, Jim wondered why I had taken root in the hallway and came to see. He saw what I was frozen pointing at, and was like OF. We bolted out the front door to call 911, and waited. And we abandoned the building to the burglar. An eternal 5 minutes later the police showed up and were initially pretty unimpressed with our find of the crowbar and fire extinguisher. Until we pulled up the security footage that revealed the actual horror, the man who planted the kit there. So this guy is built like a lean, mean, brick house. He'd crouched on a landing behind a bookcase when we closed, and watched me and my staff lock up. Bided his time. Then calm as could be, he walked out and went to the men's restroom in the hallway downstairs. That area isn't set for motion detect for a variety of reasons. He spent a while in there moving around with the door open. He constructed the mask using one of ours, and a fake flower wreath to hold it on. Purple plastic clematis. He looked right into the camera bare-faced, and then put the mask on, stared at it fixedly in his mask for a time and finally pulled his gloves on. He stacked a few solid-body vintage suitcases in front of a tall iron gate and hopped right over like it was nothing. He ran down the hall and looped the floor. He ran back into the hall, and moved a ladder to hop back to the other side of the gate and, bizarrely, just repeated this whole thing a few times. Then he went to the basement. Wormed over a 15-inch gap over yet another iron gate. Back to the hall again. Stared into the camera more. Repeat. He was moving fast up and over, back and forth, upstairs and downstairs. Parkour style almost. Then he got the tools out and peeled apart one of our steel lock boxes with the crowbar, and stole a handful of our keys to access showcases. At this point he heard me fumbling with the gate and keys upstairs. He ditched the stolen keys and tools and hid, watching me while he waited in the dark. We exited to call 911, and he ran back to the basement. In the basement there is access to a dirt tunnel that circles the perimeter of the building. He broke the door open and entered. Spiders the size of dinner plates live there. He had no light. It's muddy into 4K. It's, in a word, petrifying. There is a tiny exit hatch, if you walk the whole thing and take the multiple turns, that dumps you into the busy kitchen of a restaurant, whereupon one would need to stroll past the line cooks, out into the restaurant proper, and then one could leave their front door. When we found it, there was a clear entrance into the tunnel but no exit tracks. No muddy footprints, nobody walking out on the restaurant cameras, and the cooks noticed nothing. Reviewing the footage, timing it all, tracing his path from camera to camera and searching the building carefully took hours. By the end, all of us including the police were starting to lose our collective cool and freak out. There was no chill, when even the guys with guns were rattled. After all, where the F did he go? Jim and the two officers had no choice but to walk the dirt tunnel. The cops took one look and were like absolutely not. Jim insisted and so they made him walk point. They made it about half the tunnel before the cops were like F no, you are leaving with us and we are gonna review more footage from the restaurant where there are no spiders and F this. Jim got the okay from them to board up both ends of the tunnel. Which he did, solidly. Have you ever had a child lover boyfriend? Why did you want to leave him? I 19F was in a very short 2-month relationship with my ex 30 meters which I met at work and had a lot in common with. On our first date we had dating he let me know he's addicted to narcotics. That was a big bomb dropped on me because why wouldn't he tell me before the relationship had started, but I just thought maybe I could help him. I tried to help him quit but he said it helps him think. So after that I was like okay, red flag number 1 and it's a big red flag, but I thought still maybe he'll change. Then he's seen my bank account and seen my money, which is really not much, but I had a decent amount in savings because I'm saving to move out of state. And when he saw my money suddenly I had to start paying for everything, and if I didn't he'd pout since I'm in his words loaded with cash. He gave all his money to his parents since if they asked he'd give it that, and he spent any remaining money he had on things he didn't need because he says he deserves to buy nice things for himself. Which I knew going in he didn't have a lot of money. That didn't bother me till he made everything about money. Whenever I'd spend money on something I was saving for he'd get pouty and say I wish I had money like you, or I wish I could just spend money all the time like you. I only spent money on food and a pair of new headphones I've been budgeting money aside for. He'd also tell me that he wanted to move in with me and I said I don't have the money to do that. Then he'd be like you can save up and we can. I said if we move in together he couldn't be giving all his money to his parents, especially if I were to get pregnant, and he said he'd change and he'd tell them no more money but they'll lose their house. I was also going through such bad depression. I one day came home from work and was afraid I'd harm myself, so I texted him and said, "Can you please come over and stay with me? I don't feel safe by myself." And he said he can't. He's high. I was heartbroken. I thought, wow, he knew I was having an awful day at work, and he said to text him to make sure I'm okay, and when I said I wasn't and needed him, he was like, "Sorry, I'm high." He would also always talk about marriage and kids, and I thought I could get used to that idea, but I kept thinking, and I know I don't want kids, and if I did I would adopt a teenager or preteen. I don't want to ever go through labor or get pregnant, and he wanted kids of his own. I also told him I wanted a long-term relationship. I'm not sure about marriage. I was getting more and more red flags, and it's been 2 months, and then he started getting short temper with me over little things, and it was becoming stressful, and I was already dealing with stress from work and my medication being messed up, so I was going through a bad depression. I finally sat him down and decided I think it'd be better to break up, and he took it really well at first, saying he wants what's best for me and wants me to be happy. I thought, good, but we will need space away from each other, so we gave each other space, but still every day I was asking our mutual friend if he's doing okay, as my mental health was getting worse and worse. I later find out from my friend 21 meters that my ex went up to him and said, "You have my permission to date her, I'll be okay." And also said to him that I move on fast, since I was laughing with my friend after having a bad day. When my friend told me this, I was pissed, so I called out my ex, telling him me and my friend are like brother and sister, and even if we weren't, I don't need your permission. He then said I don't care about his feelings because he only said those because I hurt him, and now I won't let him be hurt. So I said, "You can be hurt, but that is no excuse to say things like that because I was hurting and was worried about you." He then left work and said I'm probably going to get fired for leaving early since I didn't have the time to cover it, so you'll never have to see me ever again. I just told him, "You made the decision to leave, I didn't make you do anything." He tried texting me again, but I told him I took a week off and I will not be talking to him on my vacation. Me and my friend 21 meters talked about it, and he said it's weird that he's being this way over a 2-month relationship, and I agreed. I am now completely over my ex. He made that pretty easy, so I'll be changing positions at work and save up and move state like I planned without him.